I'm online. Thank you. A very good evening to one and all. I'm Dr. Vetro Kapfo, heading the Department of Biochemistry from MMK and SDM Mahila Mahavidyalaya. It is a privilege for me to host today's program in continuation with the 5 days FDP on intellectual property rights. So I am excited at this moment to be given the opportunity to introduce today's speaker, a well experienced patent attorney with vast knowledge and practical experience and exposure to the diversity of patent filing, patent cycle, etc. And also being one who is an attorney and who represents the common man through prosecutions and various other factors. So, indeed, let us not uh, miss out any more time. So, I first of all want to thank all of you for joining in today's program. And I wish that this interaction today would be a very fruitful session for each one of you. So it is therefore I take this opportunity to introduce Miss Sunetra Derabail Sudhakar, who is the patent attorney and team manager of life sciences at SNH Partners Bengaluru. So she will be dealing with the title on patent life cycle and patent filing. So her profile is insightful. Ms. Sunetra is a team manager for the life science practice of the firm SNH Partners, having recently returned to the firm following a string of successful senior positions at other leading firms. She has been working in the field of IP since 2012, observing the evolution of patent practice in India and applying her expertise and practical insight to helping her clients to develop and adapt their intellectual property strategies in line with changing legislation and international requirements. She's a trusted advisor to her clients, able to ensure that their rights are protected across all necessary jurisdictions and that they have a relevant and efficient strategy in place to accommodate both their current and future IP needs. Ms. Sunetra assists domestic clients with international patent drafting and prosecution across India, the US, and European jurisdictions, as well as helping international clients to establish rights across India. Many of her clients are based within the life sciences sector, but the breadth of the field sees her working across a range of technologies. She has considerable expertise in performing patentability searches, freedom to operate, invalidity, sequence listing search such as BLAST, and due diligence alongside general patent portfolio management. Her experience working with several startups and research institutions, particularly within the biotech space, has been integral to their growth and the ongoing security of rights. This has provided them with much needed advice on filing strategies and budgetary management during the filing process, thereby enabling such organizations to decide the future course of action for their patent portfolios. Ms. Sunetra assists both public and private institutions, including a number of leading global brands within both traditional manufacturing and e commerce. She frequently appears before the Indian Patent Office, high courts, and district courts in connection with prosecution and enforcement of IP rights. She is also regularly invited to speak at various conferences, seminars, and startup events. And I'm very proud to say that she is an alumni of our University of Mysore, wherein she has done her master's in biochemistry in our own Mysore University. And after clearing the IPR entrance, the common entrance exam, the All India exam, she's a licensed patent agent, and she has further delved into her career, especially in patent, by availing her bachelor's of law. So, with this diverse qualification that she has, that makes her most reliable source for understanding intellectual property rights. She has also been recognized as a recommended individual in 2024 by the prestigious IM 1000. So, with this brief introduction to our speaker, I hand over the session to you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation despite your extremely busy schedule and your travel schedules. But you have been kind to to spare your time in order that we would be educated and also find the confidence that even we also are capable of filing patents. So we look forward to your session, and I encourage all the participants to utilize this platform to interact with our speaker and have all your doubts cleared when the time comes. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful introduction. And it is indeed an honor to deliver a talk to the faculty of SDM MMK. So, without much further ado, I think we can delve into the topic. Let me share my screen. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
Thank you. So, the topic that I am here to speak about is on the patent life cycle. What is patentable subject matter? A little bit on patent search, and also a few case laws to help you understand better how exactly a patent gets through in either an Indian jurisdiction or in a foreign jurisdiction. So, I'm sure you must have heard about patents in the previous session. So, I will not give an introduction of what exactly a patent is. I would like the session to be interactive. So, please feel free to stop me at any point in time if anybody has queries. So, a patent is basically a right given to an individual, a company, or a university for an intellectual property that gives the person the right to manufacture, sell, license out, use for sale, import, etc. that particular intellectual property. So, when one has an inventive idea, what does one do? Normally, in the academic scenario, one would go ahead and try to publish the research article or journal. But if that particular inventive idea has some industrial applicability or has some commercial viability, then it is always better to protect the invention by applying for a patent even before publishing a paper. So, weightage should be given first to file a patent application and then go ahead and publish a paper. Does anyone have an idea of why this is so? Please feel free to comment. Anybody? So, basically, if you publish a paper first, then that paper becomes a prior art, meaning somebody has already published it. It will be considered as a valid publication. So, when the same applicant goes ahead and files for a patent application, his own prior art will appear. And the patent office will hold that prior art against that person, saying that now you cannot go ahead and apply for a patent because you have already published a paper on the same invention. This is where we are in a fix. So, in countries like our own country, India, we have something known as grace period, where a person is given 12 months from the date of publishing his invention to go ahead and file a patent application. But this 12-month grace period is not available in many countries. Even if there is this grace period available, it is always suggested to first file a patent application at whichever stage it is, and then go ahead and publish a paper in order to avoid the paper becoming an own prior publication. With this understanding, let us move forward. Who is an inventor and who is an applicant? It is very necessary to understand the difference between inventor and applicant, because most inventors come to us saying that I have a patent application or we have a patent application. Now, this is not the matter, because an inventor is often a person who is employed in an organization. So the organization becomes the applicant and not the faculty or the employee of that organization, because the faculty or the employee is given the authority only to be mentioned as an inventor in a patent application but doesn't hold the rights of the patent application. Unless an inventor is an individual, if he is in some kind of employment agreement with another organization, he's using the organization's resources, tools, etc., to actually carry out the research or the invention, then the inventor is not the owner of the patent, the applicant becomes the owner of the patent. So I hope this concept is clear.
Dr. Chaitra Mallu to mute her phone microphone. Chaitra Mallu.
Yes, please. I would appreciate it if all the microphones are on mute, unless you want to comment on anything.
ಕೇಳಿಸೋದೆ ಇಲ್ಲ
Chaitra Mallu to mute her.
ಇತ್ತು ಇದು
I'll tell.
ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತು
Yes, that's better. Now, whenever somebody comes to us with, say, a request for filing a patent, we give them a form known as an invention disclosure form. An invention disclosure form will have questions about the particular invention. It will have questions like, what is the deficiency in the prior art which your invention improves upon? Please describe your invention in detail. Is there any material transfer agreement? For example, if there are any recombinant vectors, cell lines, or plasmids involved in the invention, which is not a proprietary of the same organization, but it is obtained from another organization. So in that case, there should be a material transfer agreement between the two organizations. If this is not there, if this is not in place, then the organization which is providing the material might come in the future saying that wrongfully a patent is being filed on a material which is obtained from our organization. So to avoid such scenarios, it is better to have a material transfer agreement in place whenever there is any exchange of material between two organizations for the purpose of patent application. And in case of biotech, we have cell lines, vectors, etc. as the materials. In case of electronic invention, it could be some kind of electronic data, it could be some devices, etc. Then, does the invention involve any biomaterial sourced from India? Now, I will talk more about this in the future slides. Basically, if any invention uses a biomaterial sourced from India, then it must be disclosed in the application that this material, for example, let us say coconut water, an invention using coconut water. So the application must clearly say that coconut water has been procured from this district, from this particular vendor in India. It must be completely disclosed in the application. Then we have deposition details. Deposition meaning if there are any recombinant plasmids, vectors, cell lines that have been involved in the invention, those cell lines, vectors, etc. must be deposited at an organization called as MTCC, Microbial Type Cell Culture. And they will give you a deposition number. It's called as the accession number. They will also give you the date of deposition and the place of deposition. Now, these details must also be disclosed in the application. The reason being, it has to be easily available to the public. The public must clearly understand what all has gone into the invention, and any person skilled in the art must be able to replicate the invention. And there is no harm caused in any person replicating the invention because the applicant already holds the right over the invention. So there is no harm in publicizing it. The entire reason for why deposition detail or why enabling data must be provided in an application is to enable any person who's skilled in the art to replicate the invention. Then, have you published a paper or research article on your invention or displayed your invention before a learned society? This is also important, as I mentioned in the primary slide, to assess if there has already been a publication. If there has already been a publication, we go and check the date of the publication. If 12 months has lapsed, then we go and tell the applicant, sorry, it is not possible to file the application now because you have already had a publication and the grace period has lapsed. Then this is all from an IP perspective to secure the IP. Nowadays, everybody is talking about commercializing inventions. So now we have a tech transfer office perspective as well. Tech transfer meaning technology transfer. So we ask questions like, what do you see as the commercial use of the invention? At what stage of development is your invention? Is it at an ideation stage? Is it at a proof of concept stage? Is it at a prototype stage? And what firms do you think will be interested in licensing out your inventions? So many of the applicants, patent applicants, come to us asking us for help in licensing their inventions as well. So with that perspective, we also ask questions like these pertaining to commercial use of the invention. Now, why are all these questions asked? What is the purpose? It is our duty as a patent attorney to assess the broadest scope of protection for the invention. And by this, this is very important, because if you get an IP with a very narrow range of protection, it is difficult to commercialize that invention. A very famous example that I always indicate in all my lectures is one particular case where we had a bioassay, and the bioassay could be carried out in vivo or in vitro. But because of in the course of prosecution, we had to really prune it, and come to a stage where we had to indicate that the assay is actually an in vitro assay. Now, although we got the IP granted for this, it was basically of no use because the assay didn't serve any purpose in vitro. In vitro meaning it is restricted to a lab scale and it did not serve any purpose. So, this is why the damage is done. Even though the applicant had secured the IP, he was not successful in commercializing the IP. So, this is the purpose why we ask such questions, in order to understand the metes and bounds of the invention, and we can get the broadest scope possible for the applicant. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the criteria for patentability. For any invention to be patentable, it has to possess novelty. It has to be inventive. By inventive, I mean it has to be in such a way that any person who is skilled in the art, so this terminology skilled in the art will appear time and again in IP. It basically means a person who has knowledge or technical expertise in that particular domain. If that person is able to look at a number of prior art documents and come up with the present invention, then it does not hold any inventive value. So this is what we mean by inventive step. It should be technically advanced over the existing technology. And the third criteria is industrial applicability. Provided the invention is novel, it has inventive step, and it has industrial applicability, then the invention can be called as patentable. The patenting process begins with the applicant submitting the invention disclosure form. Then the patent analyst will look at the invention disclosure form and carry out a search. This search is basically to assess the prior art, to see what is all there in this technology and how the present invention fares with regard to what is already there in the relevant technology. So this is basically to filter out the invention. Now, it is not necessary that a patent analyst only should perform a patent search. At the university level, even faculty can perform a patent search on their own. It is not a very difficult thing to do. There are public websites and databases available. For example, there is this Indian Patent Office database. It is called as INPAS, and it will give information about Indian patents. It has various fields: title, abstract, complete specification, application number, patent number, applicant name, etc. And one can give keywords into these tabs and easily find out the applications which are existing. But this is not a very user friendly website. The most user friendly website is, of course, the Google Patent. Here I have given an example of one invention which we have searched using Google Patents. It was basically a DNA vaccine against dengue virus. Of course, there were other keywords and terminologies also, but for a broad search, these are the keywords that we gave in the Google Patent search. In the left hand side, you can see some other search fields also. You can search based on the inventor's name, based on the applicant's name, based on the patent office, etc. These kinds of searches, which are carried out using unpaid or free databases, are not very comprehensive. That is why an applicant or an organization comes to patent analysts and attorneys like us to understand what is actually out there and what can be potentially harmful to the present invention, preventing it from getting a patent. So we have customized databases. These are paid databases. For example, we have a database called as Questel Orbit, where when we get an invention disclosure form, we read the invention, we read about the invention, we identify key terms or keywords, and then we give these keywords in a particular format known as the key strings in the orbit. Here, for example, you can see there is a search term here: aluminum chlorohydrate and isopropanol or isopropyl, and WIP means wiping or wipe. Then we have clean, scrub, preparing or preparation, process, treatment, sweat, perspiration. I would just like to ask, what do you think this invention is about? Anybody? Any guesses? Anybody? I mean, there is no right or wrong. You can just give your comments on what you think could be this invention about.
Disinfectants?
Partly yes. More answers, please. I'm just looking forward to an interactive session, so please come out with your uh, suggestions or ideas on what this could be, what you think this could be.
One of the faculties has answered wipes.
Yes. So the invention was pertaining to wipes having aluminum chlorohydrate and isopropanol at a certain concentration range. And this wipe was used to prepare a skin prior to application of a medical patch. So we have to use alternate keywords also in order to understand the prior art. So we have used isopropanol or isopropyl, because it could also be isopropyl alcohol. And we have used, if you can see after wipe there is an asterisk. This asterisk is an operator to signify it could be wipes, it could be wiping, it could be wet wipes, anything related to wipes, it will pull out the data. Similarly, there is an asterisk on clean, which means it could be cleaning, it could be cleaned. Any suffix, prefix will all come into the asterisk, which is an operator. Similarly, we have prepare. It could be preparing, preparation, etc. So the this operator, that and, or, not, and then there are several other operators within paragraph, asterisk, etc. So this is actually a specialized way of searching, where using the operators. Once we give this kind of keywords and key strings, the orbit will fetch the data. For example, for this particular invention, we got about 42 results. Now we will look into the abstract of each of these and see how close it is to the present invention. And then we will, this in this way, we'll convey this to the applicant. If we find any documents which are very close to the invention, if we find a spot on reference, or we find a reference which is close enough but not quite there, all this will be informing it to the applicant, and applicant will take an informed decision of whether they want to go ahead with filing a patent application or not. So this is all about patent search. Here also we have several options. You can look at applications which were filed after 2020. We can give dates, or we can give a specific period and find out information on all the patent applications that were filed that year. We can also search by the name of the applicant, by the legal status, if the application is dead or alive. All this will help the applicant to take an informed decision on whether they want to file a patent application or not. So once the applicant is got the information about the patent search results, and the applicant is now convinced that there are not too many prior art documents pointing out to the specific invention, and he wants to go ahead with filing the application, he will give us the approval, and we as patent attorneys would start drafting the patent application. Now, drafting is also a very specialized skill, I would say, which comes with years of experience. It doesn't come initially, where we have to assess the meets and boundaries of the invention, and we have to draft a comprehensive application highlighting the technical problem. It is all based on the problem solution approach. The draft must indicate what is the problem that is existing in the art, and what is the invention trying to do to overcome that problem. And it should have extensive examples, it should have experimental data to show the workability of the invention. And all this is necessary because it will become useful to us in the future stages of prosecution, because it's not so that somebody files an application and tomorrow it is granted. No, the patent office has its own process to examine a patent application. It will come up with objections, we have to address the objections. So in all this process, what will help us is to have as much data as possible in the complete application, so that we can rely on that data and then give our arguments accordingly. So, as I told you just some time back, it is not that when a patent is filed, it is immediately granted. Once a patent is drafted, it is filed at the patent office, and along with the draft, we file what is known as a request for examination. When a request for examination is filed, the patent will be taken up at the patent office for examination, and a similar patent search will be conducted, like how we conduct initially, even before filing or drafting an application. The kind of patent search that we conduct, a similar kind of patent search will be conducted, but now at the patent office end. And they will come up with documents. If they find documents which are close to the application, they will come up with the documents, and they will give objections. The objections could be such that the examiner might say the invention is not novel in view of this particular document, and he would name the document. Or the invention is not inventive because there are these three documents. A combination of these three documents will easily motivate a person skilled in the art to arrive at the particular invention. So these are all technical objections. Then there could be non-patentability objections, which I will discuss in some time. There could be some formality issues, etc. So, as a patent attorney, again, we review the examination report, we review the patent documents or the non patent literature that the examiner has pulled out, and we will differentiate these prior art documents with the current invention, and we will highlight the advantages of the present invention vis-a-vis the prior art documents, and we will draft a very extensive response. This response will be filed at the patent office. And once the examiner reads the response and he's convinced that yes, all the criteria is being met, the invention is indeed novel and inventive, he will right away go and grant the patent. But if the examiner is not convinced, then he will call for an oral hearing. An oral hearing is basically an something like a court proceeding, but not as serious as a court proceeding. It is more like a technical discussion, where they will provide us with a video conferencing link. The IPO or the Indian Patent Office will provide a video conferencing link. We join the video conferencing link because we represent the applicant. We have a power of attorney, and we will provide our arguments with regard to the objections. The controller or the examiner will listen to the objections. They may also have some requirements to further prune the invention. And once we reach upon an agreement, then we file a written submission based on the discussion, and then the examiner might actually grant the case or refuse the case. So once the case is granted, the story doesn't end there. Like all of you are already aware, patent is an intellectual property. It is a property, and property, like any other asset, has some maintenance fee associated with it. We pay tax for our houses and for our plots, etc. Similarly, for a granted patent application, you have to pay what is known as annuity or renewal year on year till the 20-year period, because a patent stands for 20 years. For every year, we will have to pay what is known as annuity or renewal. It is not much in India, but in certain other countries, it could be expensive. In India, especially, it is not at all expensive for an individual or a startup or a university to file an application, because not a lot of official fee is involved in filing or in prosecution or in annuities or renewals. Till now, if anybody has any doubts, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, assuming there are no doubts, let me move forward. One unique thing about Indian patent system is that we have a provision of filing a provisional patent application. There are two types of patent applications in India. One is provisional and one is complete. Say an inventor or an organization has this concept, an inventive idea. They have not completely worked out the idea. It is still in a prototype stage, or a proof of concept stage. It has not been worked on a large scale yet. They still want to go ahead with filing an application. They are free to file the application by filing a provisional patent application. A provisional patent application can be filed with minimal data, but it will give the advantage of securing the priority date. And a patent applicant has to file a complete application 12 months post the provisional application. So, say for example, an applicant files a provisional patent application on January 1st, 2024, then he can file it with minimal data. It need not be much, it need not be comprehensive, but it becomes a secret document. Nobody sees the provisional application. The patent office keeps it as a secret document because it is in an incomplete form. But the patent office nevertheless considers the January 1st, 2024 date as the priority date. And the applicant has 12 months from 2024 January 1st to file a complete application. So he or she must necessarily file the complete application by January 1st, 2025. If a complete application is not filed by that period, then the provisional date will lapse. So a provisional will give you the priority date. So your priority over that invention will start from, or will begin from 2024 January 1st, and from there to 20 years you will have monopoly over that invention. This is the advantage of provisional application. It is less expensive. It establishes the date for filing a patent. One can assess the commercial viability post filing provisional application. He can explore how this application will fare, what chances of it are there in the commercial aspect. It requires minimal information, as I said. It is confidential in nature. The patent office does not publish a provisional application, and it establishes a very early right. This is a flowchart of how an application goes through the prosecution in India. So it begins with filing the application with the patent office. Then we file the request for examination. I have mentioned Form 18 and Form 18A here. Form 18 is for any regular applicant. Form 18A is for expedited examination. This is to really trigger the patent office to give the examination report very soon. Usually within a month of filing for Form 18A, the patent office will revert with the examination report. And 18A can be filed only by startups, by universities, by individuals who are females, etc. There is some criteria for that. Within 18 months of filing an application, it will be published in the patent journal. This can also be expedited. We can file an early request for publication. It will be published in a month or so. Then the examination report is issued by the Indian Patent Office. In this period between publication and issuance of the examination report, any person, since it is already published and out there in the public domain, any interested person can file for a pre-grant opposition. If this is generally seen in pharma and generic companies, where many companies are vying to file their applications for a generic drug, it is normally not seen in the biotech or university scenario. And after filing, after issuance of examination report, we have to file a response with all the arguments to overcome the objections in the examination report. After this, it could directly proceed to grant, or we will be called for a hearing if the controller or examiner needs more clarifications. Then we file the written submission, and finally the patent document is issued. Post issuance of the patent document, there could be post grant oppositions. So there could be two oppositions. One is post publication of the application, and one is post grant of the application. But we will not discuss more about oppositions because it is rarely seen in startup scenario or where applications are filed by universities. It is more in a corporate scenario with pharma and generic companies. Now, what are the effective ways to accelerate the prosecution of patent application? So, as I said earlier, of course, there is a provision of filing a provisional application, but if the invention has already been worked out completely, it is in a complete form, then there is no reason to delay filing of the application. A direct complete application can be filed. You can request for early publication via Form 9. You can request for expedited or accelerated examination via Form 18, again subject to eligibility criteria, and early filing of response to the office action. We have 6 months to file a response to an examination report, but we have filed it as early as within a month, and this has helped the client to secure a grant faster. So these are ways of accelerating the prosecution. Now, what are the factors aiding the grant? We can file affidavit to present supplemental data. It is not done frequently or regularly. Like I told you, it is necessary to have all the information and all the experimental data in the complete application, and we have to rely on that only. But in certain cases, there are some experimental data which was generated later after filing the application, and we feel that it is necessary to get the to file these additional experimental data in the form of affidavit in order to get a successful grant. So that is when we filed affidavit, but it is not a usual case scenario. And then what has often helped us in securing grants for our clients is offering a precise explanation at the time of hearing. So I will give you some examples of how this has been achieved. An ideal timeline for getting a Indian patent application granted, we have observed that it is possible for startups and universities to get a patent grant within a year of filing or within 1.5 years of filing. This is one ideal timeline, a real case scenario. The complete application was filed on September 2022 with all the accelerated requests, that is the request for early publication, request for examination, accelerated examination. And in December 2022, the first examination report was issued. In May 2023, we filed a response to the first examination report. Then subsequently in July 2023, a hearing was issued. Then we attended the hearing in August 2023 and filed a written submission. And by October 2023, the application got granted. So it is hardly just slightly more than a year, and the client was able to secure a grant. And this is happening in most of the recent cases that we have been doing for our applicants. And this is a very encouraging scenario. And this must actually motivate more and more startups and more organizations to file Indian patent applications. Now, I spoke a little bit about affidavit. Further delving into what exactly can be submitted via affidavit. Now, a complete application must talk about the technical effect or advancement of the invention, but you can submit an affidavit to further demonstrate the technical effect. For example, this is a particular case where the invention was about the solid transformation of biomass to cattle feed, and simultaneously byproducts like ethanol was produced. And the starting material here was soybean, peas, and cereal. The inventive feature here was the specific ratio of wet bulk density to dry bulk density in this ratio, 0.60 to 1.45, and this was critical to achieve higher yields of the solid transformation product as well as ethanol. Now, the entire specification enabled this ratio 0.60 to 1.45 and showed higher yields. But it did not have any other comparative data to show that if you change this particular ratio, you will not get the required yields. So this was in the form of an objection. We got this in the form of an objection in the examination report, where the examiner said there is no comparative data. What is the guarantee that if you perform it in other ratios, you will not end up with the same yield? So the applicant had carried out experiments using other ratios as well. For example, at 0.40 to 1.60, and found out that actually they are getting reduced yields. So this kind of data we submitted in the form of an affidavit while responding to the examination report, and the examiner got convinced. So the inference here is that if you change the wet bulk density to dry bulk density of the incubation mixture out of the range of the invention, It results into a separation of the solid phase and liquid phase. The required plug flow in the bioreactor is not obtained, and this results in the reduced yields of the product. So this is the kind of information that can be submitted in an affidavit, but we usually encourage the clients to give comparative data to show all these other ratios in order to show that there is a surprising effect associated with the particular ratio that is being claimed. Another case law here is on how we were able to offer precise explanation during a hearing and get the case granted. So as you can see here, the invention was all about a dental device, and this dental device was used to perform root canal treatment. The dental device had two portions. One portion, if you can see here, is a template that is placed on the infected tooth, and the other portion was a handpiece. Now, the handpiece had a burr or a needle to drill into the infected portion, and the handpiece also had these rails. These rails could sit into the acceptor arms. These two portions, which you can see here, are the acceptor arms. So these rails could snugly fit into the acceptor arms, and the needle was able to precisely drill the infected portion. This was basically the invention. Now, the examiner came up with these three prior arts. What you see here as D1, D2, D3 are the prior arts. So, one prior art was talking about a device with acceptor arms over the infected portion. Another prior art was talking about a handheld device with a needle. And another document was talking about this kind of device which could easily drill a hole into the infected portion. What do you think could be the difference between the invention and whatever has been identified by the controller? Anybody from the audience? So the examiner's contention was that if a person skilled in the art looks at D1, D2 and D3, he will easily be able to arrive at the present invention. But there is a major difference, if anybody can find out. Okay, so the difference here is on the rails. None of the devices here have the rails in the hand portion. Now, the reason why these rails are there is there is a predetermined distance for this needle to dig into the infected portion. So the rails are also adjusted accordingly. And the rails are in such a way that the visibility of the infected tooth is not affected. A dentist performing the surgery will be able to easily see the infected tooth and perform the surgery. So during hearing, we offered this kind of explanation and we showed some pictures as well. So the device that you see in the first line is the device of the prior art, where there is only one acceptor slot. For example, this kind of a device where there is only one acceptor slot. So even if there is a handpiece and everything, and there is a narrow burr or a needle to drill the infected tooth, visibility of the tooth is it's compromised. You cannot see the infected tooth clearly here. However, the present invention has this kind of a template where there are two acceptor slots and there are two rails, and it will drill into a predetermined distance, and the visibility is not affected. The tooth can be easily seen. However, here the tooth is blocked. So by giving this kind of data and this kind of differentiation between the prior art and the present invention, we were able to convince the examiner and get a grant for this dental device. So this becomes very important for a patent attorney to clearly understand the differences between the invention, if it is a medical device or a biotech process, etc. Only if the patent attorney is convinced will he or she be able to effectively convince the examiner. So it involves a lot of discussion with the client or the applicant to understand the differences, to comprehend it, and to present it in an effective way to the controller. This is a little bit about filing international applications. I think the previous speaker would have covered a few of these topics, but just for your information, once a priority application, meaning the first application is filed in the local country, here, for example, India. If the applicant wishes to file abroad as well, there are two routes. One route is the Paris Convention, where, if you can see here, this is where a local application is filed, and within 12 months of the local application, it can be filed abroad. Now, this is where an applicant has a clear understanding of where he wants to file. If the applicant knows, I have three countries where I'm going to file my application, that could be China, Japan, and Korea, then he might go with the Paris Convention route. But if an application is, say, for example, an MNC or an organization, there is a lot of potential for the invention, there is a lot of market relevance in multiple countries for the invention, then he might go with the PCT route. A PCT route starts with filing a local application. Within 12 months of filing a local application, a PCT application is filed. Then you may just forget about these parameters. We can directly go to this stage, the 30th month deadline. At the 30th or the 31st month, the applicant can enter national phase. That means entering different countries. So a PCT will allow an applicant more time to decide on the countries where he wants to file. He has 30 months or nearly 31 months to decide on the countries. And during that time, he can perform a market relevance search to find out where all his application will be fetching some commercial value. Whereas in this case, the applicant is already aware of where he wants to file. I would like to give an example. We had an applicant who wanted to file an application for a DNA dengue virus vaccine. So he came and told us that there is no use in filing a PCT because I already know the countries that I want to file in. It is mostly the countries where the mosquito population is rampant. So it is mainly Southeast Asian countries like Singapore, Malaysia, etc. And I'm not going to file in Europe and US. So with this clarity, we went ahead and filed Paris Convention applications in Southeast Asian countries. So this is the difference between Paris Convention and PCT. Next, I would like to go with a very interesting topic, which I'm sure will be interesting for you as well. What are patent ineligible subject matter in India? So, whenever anyone has an invention, it is always better to know what is ineligible or non patentable in India, even before going ahead with filing an application. So, there is a section known as Section 3 in Indian Patents Act, which lists out kind of inventions which are not patentable. Here, I am just giving a list of biotech, life science, and chemistry related inventions which are not considered patentable subject matter. A mere discovery of a scientific principle is not patentable under Section 3C. For example, a freely occurring microorganism is not patentable. This also involves dynamics, laws, for example, thermodynamics laws, the Newton's law, Big Bang theory. Any theory, hypothesis, laws, etc. are not patentable under the Indian patent practice. Then we have Section 3D. New form, new use, or new property of a known substance is not patentable. I will talk about this in some time. Basically, any salt form, ester form, ether form, polymorph of a known compound is not patentable unless the applicant shows something known as technical advancement or efficacy over the known compound. If the salt form is found to be very efficacious or advantageous over the existing known form, then there is a chance that it might get a patent. But if it is just a salt form of a known compound having the same kind of properties, the same kind of technical effect, it is difficult to get a patent. It will come under patent ineligible subject matter. Then we have a mere admixture. This is why food compositions and recipes are difficult to patent in India. No doubt there have been patents on food compositions and recipes, but they are usually objected under Section 3E for being a mere admixture, meaning a mixture of known ingredients or known components without any synergistic effect. So the word synergy is very important here. It is possible to patent a mixture of known compounds if you are able to give some data to show the synergistic value or the combinational value. It shouldn't be an additive value, it should be a synergistic effect. For example, there is a drug known to be effective against a particular type of cancer with 20% efficacy, and there is another drug B which is again shown 20% efficacy for the treatment of that cancer. Now the applicant comes up with a combination of the two drugs. If the efficacy of the drug is about 40%, it is an additive effect, it is an expected effect. But if the applicant is able to show an efficacy of 80% against cancerous cell, then this cannot be considered as a mere admixture. It is a synergistic composition. So, with this understanding, we will have more examples to understand this, but let us go with this flow. A method of agriculture or horticulture is not patentable in India. Then, very importantly, under 3I, a method of diagnosis or treatment of human beings or animals is not patentable in India. Any surgical method of treatment or diagnosis is not patentable. Under section 3J, plants and animals in whole and essentially biological processes for propagation of plants and animals are not patentable in India. And by essentially biological processes, I mean processes such as crossbreeding, animal husbandry, pollination, etc. However, if the process involves sufficient human intervention, if it is a recombinant DNA which is prepared in the laboratory, and there is a lot of human intervention and laboratory steps involved, then it will not be considered an essentially biological process. Lastly, under section 3P, traditional knowledge is not patentable in India. Traditional knowledge meaning the use of age-old ancient ingredients for various disease. It could be disease indications or it could be any syndromes. For example, use of honey, turmeric, neem, tulsi, etc. The basmati rice. All this is traditional knowledge. So an examiner examining the application will come to know of whether a particular invention is on traditional knowledge because he will refer to a database called as TKDL or Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, which will have a list of all the Indian ingredients and the knowledge that we have traditionally in order to assess if the invention will come under section 3P or not. Now, I would like to give a list of subject matter, and I would like you to please let me know if you believe it is patentable or patent eligible in India or not. So, the first one here is a soil bacterium. Is this patentable or not?
Microbes cannot be patented.
That's right, sir. Microbes cannot be patented under section 3C. Then we have a recombinant DNA vaccine effective against the dengue virus. Is this patentable subject matter?
Patentable.
Yes, it is patentable because it is a recombinant DNA vaccine. There are recombinant sequences involved. Number 3, a method of mushroom cultivation.
Not
Is it
patentable.
a method of mushroom cultivation is not patentable under 3J because it says here that essentially biological processes is not patentable. So the method of mushroom cultivation, if it is a naturally occurring process, then it is not patentable. Use of haldi, turmeric as antiseptic.
Not patentable.
Patentable.
That's right. Not patentable under 3P, that is traditional knowledge. Salt form of a known drug. This is a little tricky.
Patentable.
It is patentable if one shows efficacy data to show the technical
Yeah.
advantage over the known drug. But if
Yeah,
they're not
depending on
able
the
to
binding
show,
of the drug site, if the efficacy is good, it is allowed.
that's right, sir. So if efficacy is shown, it is allowed. Otherwise, it is not patentable. Grains of an indigenous variety of basmati.
No, non-patentable.
Not patentable.
Non-patentable under two sections. One is traditional knowledge and another is it could be plant, animal or seeds in whole. A method of determining susceptibility of a retrovirus to an antiviral drug. This is
Patentable.
again very it is this is a live case. A method of determining susceptibility of a retrovirus to an antiviral drug may seem like a bioassay and patentable, but actually it is
It
just
is
to
not
assess if a patient is responding to the antiviral drug. And indirectly, it is a method of treatment or diagnosis under Section 3I.
Yeah.
So this is a live case, and we are doing this case now. And there are objections under Section 3I because the examiner is construing this method to be a method of diagnosis or treatment, because the ultimate purpose is to find out if the viral load in a patient and if the patient is responding to that antiviral therapy. We are trying to word this claim into a method of finding out the IC50 concentration of the antiviral drug to the enzyme. So we are trying to word it in the form of a bioassay to convince the examiner. But if the examiner is not convinced with this also, then we'll have to drop the case because it's falling directly under Section 3I. Intraocular lens. Intraocular meaning within the eyes. Is it patentable
Yes,
or
it
not?
can be done.
Yes, it is patentable because it's a product. A dental device for performing root canal treatment.
Yes.
Yes, it is patentable. A method of performing cataract surgery.
Not
No.
patentable.
That's right.
No.
It's not patentable under Section 3I. A mixture of salt and pepper.
Not patentable.
Not patentable.
Not patentable.
Because
Not
mixtures are
patentable
not
under
allowed.
absolutely. Mixtures under Section 3E are not patentable. And salt and pepper, we know that as a mixture. It is not a synergistic combination. A soup mix to treat vitamin B12 deficiency. Having
Not
walnuts
patentable.
and ragi.
Not patentable.
Yes, it appears to be not patentable, but this is again a live case. And although it received objections on 3E for being a mere admixture, the case has got granted because the applicant was able to prove the calorific value, omega 3 fatty acid content, and other values in the soup mix when compared to the individual ingredients, which is walnut and ragi. So they were able to fetch this kind of data from NABL, National Accreditation Board for Laboratories. And because of this, the examiner has been convinced and they have granted a patent despite a Section 3E objection. So this is because they were able to show some synergistic effect for the soup mix over the individual ingredients. Okay, so this was all about the Indian scenario. Now we move to the European scenario or the EP scenario. How different is the patent eligibility scope in Europe when compared to India? I have some claims here. If you can see the claim part, use of product X for the treatment of asthma. Since it is a use claim, it is not patentable either in India or in Europe. Then B, we have product X for use as a medicament. If X is known as a herbicide, and now we are trying to claim that the product is being used as a medicament, then it is patentable in Europe, but it is not patentable in India for being a use claim. Now, product for use in the treatment of asthma, even if it is known prior as a medicament, in Europe, yes, it is patentable, but in India, it is not. Product X for use in the treatment of cancer, although it is known as a medicament or for the treatment of any other disease like asthma, now newly, if you have found out that it is effective against cancer also, in Europe, it is patentable, in India, it is not. And lastly, product X for use in the treatment of the specific type of cancer, leukemia. Even if it is prior known as an anti-cancer agent for some other cancer, if it has been newly found out that it is effective against leukemia also, Under the EP scenario, it is patentable, but in India, it is not patentable. In India, only the product X per se can be patented if it is novel and inventive. This is a little bit about the traditional knowledge digital library, which I already spoke about, that it is a database which has information on all the traditional knowledge of India, and examiners can refer it when they are assessing a patent application to find out if the matter is patentable or not. Now a little bit more about patenting under section 3D. So under section 3D, a new form, new use of a known substance is not patentable unless some efficacy data is provided. So salt forms, ester forms, ether forms, polymorphs, etc. are not patentable unless they significantly differ in the properties with regard to efficacy. There is a famous case law here, and it's necessary for everybody in this technical domain to be aware of this case law because it was a Supreme Court verdict. This is known as the Novartis case. So Novartis is a huge pharmaceutical company which filed a patent application for a drug called as Gleevec. That was the trade name. The drug was basically the beta crystalline form of imatinib mesylate, and the alpha crystalline form of imatinib mesylate is a known form. Now, Novartis claimed that we have found out that the beta crystalline form is effective against myeloid leukemia, and they filed a patent application for this. Now, this attracted a lot of pre-grant oppositions. A lot of Indian pharmaceutical companies got together and filed this opposition at the patent office, saying that this is clearly following under Section 3D and it must not be allowed. Now, Novartis fought this case by saying that, yes, we are aware that the alpha crystalline form is existing, but we are trying to show that the beta crystalline form is more efficacious because it is more thermodynamically stable and it has a better shelf life. It is more bioavailable when compared to the alpha crystalline form. Even with all this data, it was not convincing at the patent office to grant a case for Novartis. Could anybody tell me the reason why? What could have been the reason? Anybody? Any guesses?
How about the toxicity and other, I mean, apart from efficacy, how is the toxicity and other details also is also be known, right?
So here, it is important to know that the use of this was against myeloid leukemia. The purpose of this invention was to treat cancer. So what is the kind of data that was actually required to show the efficacy?
Effective treatment of the cancer. If it is better than
Exactly.
that at the shortest time,
Exactly.
is what.
So they should
Like
have
very good
shown.
example. Just to sorry to interrupt. Add on. See, we all know a lot of products are there in the market. And previously,
Yes.
when we were young, we used to only eat for 3 days. Now we are eating for 5 days because of a lot of non-ethical companies coming in and putting active compound low and diluting with some other thing. The efficacy goes down, and we end up in taking high, and that will affect your side effects like kidneys and other things.
Yes. Absolutely. So, like you correctly stated, Novartis was unable to show data on how the beta crystalline form was better than the alpha crystalline form for treating cancer. All that it showed was thermodynamic stability, shelf life, etc. But its effect in treating cancerous cells was similar to the alpha crystalline form. So, this is why the case proceeded till the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave a decision that Novartis will not be granted a patent on Gleevec. And Gleevec was priced at a very atrocious rates. And the people even took to the streets when this case was going on. You can see a picture here where somebody is holding a placard saying "Patent kills patient." So this was actually a landmark decision, and we are till date we are using this decision to assess if anything falls under Section 3D or not. This is the famous Novartis case.
Sorry to interrupt. How about the other countries, ma'am? It is in India. How about the other countries?
In India, we have strict laws, sir. So generic companies actually find it tough to patent, different forms of the known drug. But in other countries, it is relatively easy. Evergreening. This is called evergreening of patents, especially in US. They do a lot of tricks. The generic companies do a lot of tricks to enter into the market and file their patent applications. They do not have any such restrictions. Even if very minimal advantageous data is shown in the application, it proceeds towards grant. A lot of evergreening happens in the US scenario.
Okay, so we have any data that it has been already patented in other countries? Same drug?
Yes, there is data. If you can look up at, I can share some websites. The Novartis holds patent for Glivec in other countries, but in India it doesn't. It does not hold.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. Then we move on to section 3J. Just one case law to explain what it is all about. So, plants and animals and essentially biological processes, I repeat, are not patentable under section 3J. But if it is not a naturally occurring sequence, and if it has been constructed synthetically in the laboratory, or if it is a recombinant sequence, there is sufficient human intervention, then yes, that invention is patentable. Now, this case is known as the BT cotton battle, or the biotech cotton battle. So there was this huge company called as Monsanto, which held a technology for producing BT cotton. Basically, the toxic gene from Bacillus thuringiensis, one bacterium, was taken and put into the genome of cotton plants to make them resistant to pests like bollworms, etc. So basically, it was all about a recombinant sequence for the for the cotton. Now again, Monsanto being a company, a giant company, it licensed out this technology to domestic Indian farmers, and these domestic Indian farmers were paying huge amounts, huge trade fee to Monsanto. So they all got together and filed an opposition against Monsanto, saying that Monsanto's technology is directly falling under Section 3J for being a biological process relating to plants, and hence it should not be granted a patent. But again, this is a Supreme Court decision. What do you think is the outcome of this case? Do you think Monsanto got the case in its favor, or it did not get this case in its favor?
Did not get.
Actually, sir, it got the case because, like I told you, it was a recombinant sequence. So, this was their claim, a method of producing a transgenic plant. So, transgenic plant method of propagation was not considered as a naturally occurring process because, like I told you, naturally occurring process could be animal husbandry, breeding, cross pollination, cross breeding, etc. But fertilization, etc. But here it was completely manufactured in the laboratory. It was a recombinant DNA sequence. So hence Monsanto did get a patent on this, but India cut the fee on Monsanto's genetically modified cotton seeds to about 39 rupees from 49 rupees. So this was one concession, but otherwise Monsanto did win this case at the Supreme Court level. Now I have another case known as the Allergan case. So if you can recall, a method of treatment or diagnosis is not patentable under Indian patents. Now Allergan is a company which held an application for intracameral sustained release therapeutic agent implants, meaning eye implants, and it was drafted in the method of format claim. So at the patent office, they rejected this application, saying that it is directly falling under section 3I. Now, Allergan filed a response with an amended claim set, and there they focused on the intracameral implant as a product rather than a method of treatment. But it was still objected by the controller at the patent office, saying that one cannot change the scope of the claim from a method of treatment to a product as an intracameral implant. It is not permissible. And there is a section for that called as section 59. One must not change the scope of the claims while amending the claims. But a wrong interpretation of this was taken up by the controller. Now, an appeal was filed at the Delhi High Court. The case went till the Delhi High Court. And the court declared that since treatment method is not patentable, amending the treatment method to a product method is not improper at all. It is permitted. Provided that the product has enablement in the specification, the product is novel and inventive, then by all means it is patentable. There is no restriction for the applicant to change a method of treatment claim to a product claim. So Allergan won this case. This is again a successful example of how a company was able to get a method of treatment changed into a product claim and then get the product granted. This is the last case, Vifer product by process patent. So Vifer is a company which filed a patent for a pharmaceutical composition for the treatment of iron deficiency, and this composition had ferric carboxy maltose. You can see the granted claim of Vifer here. The preamble says water soluble iron carbohydrate complexes obtainable from, and then there are steps of how it was obtained, and finally it mentions an important feature which is in bold here. The obtained ion complexes have an average molecular weight of 80 to 400 kilodalton. So although this claim has a lot of unwanted process steps, what is the inventive feature here is that the ion complexes have a particular range of molecular weight. So this kind of a claim is called as a product by process claim. The problem here is to assess whether this is a product or whether this product should be restricted by the process steps. So other companies like MSN Laboratories and Reddy's Laboratories, they started launching generic version of ferric carboxy maltase, and each of these companies claimed that they employed a different process. It is not the process that Vifer is you know uh, the kind of process that Vifer is following to get these complexes. Then there was another company called Corona Remedies. It also launched a generic version of FCM. Now Vifer came back heavily saying that we already have a patent application and other companies cannot launch their generic versions. And this was also a High Court decision at the single judge order stage. So it will be judged by two judges. It will first go to the single judge. If appellant is not convinced with the single judge order, it will go to the division bench. The single judge order interpreted the product by process claim to be limited by the process and stated that it is limited by the process steps and the other companies are not wrong in launching the generic version. But the division bench stated that the scope of such product by process claim should be restricted to the product alone and the process steps must not be considered. It should not be a limiting aspect. So, since such ferric carboxy maltase complexes having an average molecular weight of 80 to 400 kilodalton are novel and inventive, that itself is restricted to the product. You should not consider the process steps, and hence Vifer has an absolute monopoly of FCM. Other companies cannot be launching their generic versions. So this is the key takeaway. Whenever there is a product by process claim, the product itself has to be novel and inventive. It will not be limited by the process steps. Moving to the last couple of topics in our discussion. Like I stated, if any invention uses biomaterials from India, it must be sufficiently described in the specification. If there is a recombinant cell line or a vector used, name of the accession number, name of the depository institution, date and number of the deposit should be mentioned in the application. So earlier there was this was what was mentioned in the Biodiversity Act, that bioresources are plants, animals, microorganisms, parts thereof, genetic material, byproducts, excluding value added products, and does not include human genetic material. So a biomaterial, you can't say human genetic material is biomaterial. So apart from human genetic material, any other material from plants, animals, etc. will be considered biomaterial. Now the term byproduct had an issue because there were a lot of patents coming up for wastewater technologies, and wastewater should not be considered as a byproduct, but sadly the patent office was considering that as a byproduct, taking a very narrow view of this statement. So they changed the law, they changed the BD Act to mention derivatives instead of byproduct, to be clear on what exactly are derivatives of plant and animal. By value added products, I mean products like Chavanprash, Pudin Hara, etc., which is in a physically inseparable form. So these are also excluded from the BD Act. But any other biomaterial from plants and animals are considered biomaterial, and hence they have to be clearly described in the specification. Source must be mentioned, the geographical origin of the material must be mentioned, the vendor from which it is procured or the farm from which it is procured must be mentioned. If there is a recombinant cell, vector, etc., the deposition details must be mentioned. And sufficient. I mean, just for an Indian company to use a bioresource from India, it does not require any permission from the National Biodiversity Authority. But for the purposes of IP, securing IP, it must file an application to the NBA. It is a not a very cumbersome process. Foreign applicants need to apply in something known as Form 7 with a fee payment, and Indian applicants need to apply in Form 8 for registration, because this is just to prevent biopiracy or exploit the use of a particular bioresource from India. Nowadays, we are coming across many patents and inventions on medical devices and AI. So far, I discussed all about patent ineligible subject matter when it comes to biotech inventions. Now, there are other sections also, for example, Section 3K, which precludes a mathematical or a business method or a computer program from patentability. There is a section called as 3M, where mathematical equations cannot be patented. So, for AI related inventions, we get objections under 3K and 3I also, I mean 3M also. And of course, most of the AI related medical devices will fall under 3I aspect as well. So we try to overcome these objections by mentioning the hardware components. So instead of say for example, data processing means is a terminology that is used in the claims, we convert it to data processor. Similarly, we rely on memory, processor, then server, etc. So we give some hardware or structural limitations to the AI device in order to avoid 3K objection, 3M objection, and also 3I objection. And obviously, we outline the advantages in terms of better speed, efficiency, accuracy, etc. for healthcare applications. And in this way, we are successfully able to tackle such objections for AI related medical device equipments. So that is all from my end. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you,
Ma'am, I
ma'am.
have a question. Yeah.
Yes. So yes, we will proceed with the discussion. We will go as per the sequence of those who have raised their hands and asked questions. So yes, first I ask Irfan sir, since you have you were earlier showing an interest to discuss certain issues. So kindly
Yeah.
proceed, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, my question is, you talked about this EU, right? So what will be the
Yes.
cost variation with respect if you go with the Paris Convention or the PCT application?
PCT applications are expensive uh, because here we are looking at multiple countries. The objective is to enter multiple countries through PCT route. If there is a clear there's a clear knowledge that the applicant wants to enter only, say for example, one country or two countries, then there is no point in applying a PCT application. They can go through the conventional route. So cost wise, convention applications are less expensive when compared to the PCT route.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you. There was a hand raised by Madam Brinda. Madam, you can, yes, take use the platform to clarify your doubts. Brinda, ma'am. Okay. Then we will proceed with Dr. Sardar Hussain, who has asked a question on the chat box. Whether a new drug or molecule which is naturally occurring but has been isolated or altered can be patented. That too, after explaining the mechanism of action.
So, if a new drug is isolated and it is naturally occurring, then it is not patentable. But if it is altered, even slightly, and if that slight alteration is able to show some technical effect, then yes, definitely it can be patented.
So, any more questions? You can unmute and ask the question, or you can type it in the chat box, participants. Okay. Then
I
I
have
will
one more,
ask. Okay,
I have
okay.
one
Yes,
more small question. Yeah,
yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Uh, a client of mine has around 11 European country patents. So because of he used to work for a company, and after he left, he's not able to have a copy of it. So any chance where we can get these copies downloaded somewhere, especially country wise?
Yes, there is a website called as the European Patent Register or eSpaceNet. It's a publicly available website. So once you enter the application number of the European patent, you can download all the documents from that website.
Okay,
It's called
thanks.
eSpaceNet or EP Register.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So it was a very informative session, and giving those live examples, especially not only what is case studies, but also what has been dealt by you and the firm, definitely has put a real time touch and helped us to understand. I do have few questions. I would like to take the opportunity to ask them. So there was a section where you had mentioned that uh, when a patent is applied for, then the examiner checks whether there is a similarity, dissimilarity, and based on what are the previous information or applicants' data that is available. So, is there like expected percentage of dissimilarity for an invention to be patentable, or um, like any sort of an expected statistical difference? If suppose if there is a similar product, but probably there are some difference, but which will be considered patentable or not patentable.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. So, this is precisely why, even before filing an application, we conduct a patent search from our end to do our homework and be aware of all the prior publications. It could be patent publications, it could even be non patent literature. Both are considered by the examiner. So, we do our homework and we will let the client know the success rate or the chances that a patent might get through. If there are factors that the client needs to work on, if the client is able to say that a particular therapeutic compound is able to have, for example, 30% efficacy, and we find that there are documents having the similar efficacy, then we will inform the client and he will try to procure data to show better efficacy. So that is the kind of homework that we do, that is the kind of preparation the client also does. Then we go ahead and file, and as you said, the examiner will not directly grant any case. There will be an examination report, there will be objections. He will also carry out a patentability search at his end, and there have been many instances that the examiner is citing the same documents that we had identified during the very initial course. So that is the like a best case scenario where the client can applicant can directly give arguments because we're already well prepared and we know the differences. So that is the best case scenario if the same documents are identified by the examiner. But there have been cases where examiner has pulled out other relevant documents also, sometimes more relevant than what we found during the initial searches. So in these cases, we will try to give our arguments as much as possible. There will be, of course, differences between the present invention and what was identified by the examiner. We will try to give the differences. If we are not able to show enough differences, then like I said, we will try to submit affidavit by showing additional experimental data on other values, on other other ranges, to show that the invention is not effective in those ranges, but we have shown effectivity at a very specified range. So we will try to give additional data in the form of affidavits, and that is how we try to get the case granted. But the probability of an examiner to come up with a spot on 100% reference is very, very low. It is possible, but it is very, very low. Usually the novelty is given, but inventive step becomes an objection. And the examiner will not pull out too many documents also for inventive step. Maximum we have seen is about 5 or 6 documents, generally 2 or 3 documents.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. In the chat box, I see Mr. Yadunandan from Davangere University. Sir, you have any queries, any questions to ask?
I don't know whether it is relevant or not, but I have read that Einstein had more than 50 patents filed, but we don't hear them. It is not coming up, surfaced. I want to know about it. I don't know whether it is because we know he has filed many patents in his name, but we don't
If
hear
they
them
are
now.
there are all the patents are granted patents are usually published. So since the patents that Isaac filed are like many years back, I don't know if they are on the public domain, but they would have been published in at least in a printed format back then, in the form of a book or a journal. But I don't know if they are available on public databases because they are many years old.
They are many years old. That's what.
Yes.
It is not surfacing now. Oh,
Yes, but some archive somewhere might be having the printed hard copy format of those patents.
okay.
Okay, so a couple of more questions from my side. So we use a lot of instant mixes for our food, like instant noodles, etc., and they have all those taste mixers and all that. So are those patented products?
So food
The
recipes and
Yeah.
mixtures are generally not patentable because all the ingredients are known. And if it comes to
Hmm.
food, it is only taste which becomes relevant. So taste is not a criteria for synergistic data. But like I gave an example, there has been a patent granted for a soup mix of known ingredients, but that was relevant for omega 3 fatty acid content, or better beta 12 content. And the applicant was able to show the synergy when compared to the individual components. So that way they were able to get a patent. But if it is only for a flavor, for enhancement in flavor, or the ingredients are known, very well known ingredients, and they are just put together, then it is very difficult to get a patent for such recipes. They will always be rejected under admixture.
Okay. Then finally, I wanted to. Okay, so someone has responded. It's a trade secret. Okay, thank you, sir. Um, Finally, I want to know regarding the AI tools, since you had mentioned that not every AI tool can be considered patentable because it's programming and mathematical equations. But what about these tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, all that? Are those patented, or um, I'm just curious?
I am also unaware, and I cannot comment on whether ChatGPT is patented or not, and if so, in which country. But in India,
Hmm.
yes, we are able to get patents on medical device, especially when it is linked to an AI technology. And although we have faced rejections under 3K and 3M for being computer program or mathematical equation, we were able to get away by showing the hardware components, by showing the technical relevance, etc. So that is possible. It's becoming possible in India, but this is again, uh, you know. The law is changing and the technology is also changing, so it is something that we are observing, and we cannot definitely comment that yes, AI is patentable, or no, AI is not patentable. It is varying from case to case basis, and the law is also evolving along with this technological advancements in AI.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patient explanation, and I thank the participants also for being so interactive. Yeah, is there any more questions? So, if not, then the feedback link has been shared in the group in the chat box. So I request everyone to fill the form. And if you would like to reach out to the resource persons, yes, we definitely would be happy to share their contact email address. So thank you so much, Sunetra Madam. Your talk has been very effective, interactive. At the same time, you have been able to touch the topics in depth with much detail as well. So, with the various case studies that you have presented, I'm sure that the participants who have listened and gone through the session would have got a very fair idea about the patentability of any invention. So, thank you for taking us through. And once again, we are grateful for your participation, for your presence with us. I'm thankful for given this opportunity by our management, by our principal Bharti ma'am, the IQAC coordinator Sukrita ma'am, and all the other committee members of the NAC team for hosting this program. So it indeed has been a very fruitful time for me, and I'm sure a very time well spent for the other participants also. So with this, we come to the end of the session, and we wish that all the very best for the future endeavors for all the participants. And we wish all success also for your career, madam, that you will continue to grow um, uh, phenomenally and represent many clients for a successful patent
Thank you very much, ma'am.
patent
And
granted. Yeah.
from my side, it would be very nice to see more and more faculty and students and universities coming up with patent applications and licensing technologies. It will be very motivating for students as well as educational institutions to see technologies or spin-offs that is made at a laboratory scale in their own academic labs. So we wish to see more and more of patent applications from the academic side as well.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, ma'am.